Welcome to the video tutorial on how to set up your office pool for Turbo Tourney 2004. This tutorial will give you just a basic understanding of some of the most common options to set to at least just get your pool started. There will be some additional tutorials that will get into some more advanced topics than this one, but this one will give you the general idea on how to set your settings to get your pool going. The easiest way to first start configuring your options is to use the Setup Wizard. The Setup Wizard can be found either under the Tools menu, Setup Wizard, or you can select it from the toolbar where the wand is here. All of these icons in the toolbar represent the same menu items underneath the Tools menu, so you have easy access to run any of the tools from the toolbar. So I'm going to select the Setup Wizard, and you have an idea of the things you're going to fill out during the Setup Wizard process. And it just basically takes you screen by screen to set up your options. The tournament name is what you want to call your pool. I want to call this 2004 My Office Pool. And for this demonstration purpose, I'm going to use 2003 as my year. A nice trick with this is that Turbo Tourney provides the templates for the current year and the prior year. So if you want to do some testing to see how things will work with the software, just set your year back to the year prior, and you'll be able to download the pairings and results from last year's pool. So I'm going to go ahead and use 2003 so that we can go in and show you how to download the pairings as well. Enter in my contact name and my email address. And you can select whether or not you want to run a men's tournament pool or a women's tournament pool. For this example, we're going to go ahead and choose men's and select next. And now we come to the regional matchups. Now on the regional matchups, it's important that we have the correct assignments made so that we have the right regions meeting in the Final Four. However, you really don't need to worry about this too much, because if you're going to use the download from our website, you'll get the correct regional matchups from that. So my suggestion to you is to go ahead and leave those as they are now, and then when we download the pairings, we're also going to download the regional assignments so that we don't have any chance of getting them wrong. So I'm going to leave those the way they are. And then you have the option of specifying what you want to call each round. These are just the default settings, but you can change these to be any wording that you want. So if you don't like this option here, we can call it really that way if we'd like. So really you can change and configure pretty much anything here. And then the numbers on the side here represent the round numbers, and these come in handy when we get to the scoring options. And there's some options where you can set the scoring to be based on the round number, and this is what it uses to determine that. So I'll select next, and now I'm in the locations and dates. And again, just like the regional matchups, I'm going to go ahead and leave these blank, and then later we're going to download them with the pairings information. Now the player information is where you specify what information you want to keep track of for each of your players. This is again just the default, but you can change this to be anything that you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my player ID field be the email address instead of the name. The main thing to note here is that the player ID has to be unique for every person in the pool, so just make sure that you specify a field that will be different for everybody that enters your pool. And I'm going to go ahead and use phone number as player information 1, and fax number as player information 2, and then on player information 3 I'm going to go ahead and make this be the last name, first name. And then the route using is what tells the program which one of those fields is your email address, if there is one. So if you're not collecting email address from your players, you would select the no routing option. But in my case, I'm using player ID as my email address up above here. So I need to tell the program that player ID is an email address field. And then you can also specify whether or not you want to include a password, and if you select one of these fields as a password field, you again need to tell the program which one of those fields represents the password. And then in the checkboxes you have the option to specify some checkbox information for your players. And I'm going to go ahead and set up one to be whether or not they've paid me yet. And the default's going to be no. And that's all I'm going to use. I'm going to leave the flag 2 as not used. The default just means when you add a new player, what that value should default to, which you can change it as you enter the player information. And we'll select next now. And now we come to the scoring options. And there's 3 different types of scoring options with Turbo Tourney. You can use standard scoring, seed scoring, and underdog scoring. And you can use any combination of those. If you want to do standard scoring and underdog, you can select those options. If you want to do just seed scoring, we can select that option. If we want to do seed and underdog, we can do that option. So you can really select any of the 3 that you want to use, or any combination of the 3. The standard scoring is pretty straightforward. Again, it's just number of points per round. So the default here, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. But in my pool, I go ahead and I score at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we give a little more weight to the later rounds, but we don't make it as much as the default is. And then if you want to use seed scoring, you can use the seed number of the team in a number of different ways. We can use it the seed number times the round number, the seed number times the points per round, which is the information up here. So there's a lot of different ways we can configure this. There's also a seed factor option. The seed factor option lets me go ahead and specify, it's similar to seed scoring, but instead of specifying the seed number on the team, I'm going to go ahead and kind of give an override value to this. So, I can say I'm going to award anyone who picks a 1 seed 5 points. A 1 seed through a 9 seed, I'll get 5 points, but if they get a 10 seed through a 16 seed, they're going to get 9 points. So it's kind of like using the seed scoring based on the seed number of the team, but we're going to go ahead and override the actual seed number and use a different number, which we call a factor. So in that case, like I said, if you pick a number 1 seed, you're going to get 5 points, not 1 point. And again, you can use any different combination of those seed factors. And then underdog scoring is similar to the standard scoring in terms of how you can award the points for underdog pick. So if there's an underdog pick in round 1, they'll get 1 point for that underdog. So the way these scoring options work is they're pretty much all added together. So if I have a correct pick, I'm going to get 1 point in the first round. And if it's a number 1 seed, I'm going to get 5 points for the number 1 seed pick in the first round. And if it's an underdog, I'm going to get another point here. So it just continually keeps adding up these options as the games are played. The other option on underdog scoring is the seed difference, in which it just takes basically the seed numbers of the 2 teams that the player picked to win, and that's the number of points that get awarded for correctly picking an underdog. The next option is the tiebreakers, and you can specify whether or not you'd like to use tiebreakers or not. Most people go ahead and use tiebreakers. You can also tell the program, do you want to break the ties during the tournament or just at the end of the tournament? If you want to see, if you have 5 people tied for first at the end of the first round, do you want to use the tiebreakers to go ahead and break those ties? Typically, we just wait till the end of the tournament to break all the ties and just do it at the very end. And then you have an option to whether or not what to do if the tiebreaker is unknown. A lot of people use the total points in the final game as a tiebreaker, and so until that final game happens, we don't know how to break those ties. So if we get to that point, we usually just stop breaking ties and just leave it as it is at that point. And then you have 3 different tiebreaker options you can select. There's different choices here of what you can pick for your tiebreakers. We're going to go ahead and use total points in the tiebreaker game as the first one. And if that doesn't do it, we're going to go ahead and use the pick percentage as the second tiebreaker. And if that still doesn't break the tie, we're going to go ahead and say the most teams picked into the second round. So we use 3 different tiebreakers, and the program will just continually go through until it can break the tie for that person. And then you also have an option if you use the total points in the tiebreaker game, whether or not the player has to be under the total score. We don't use that in ours, so we'll go ahead and leave that not checked. And now we're done. We've set up all of our options, and we can select finish, and we're going to leave this option selected here, it's going to take us right to the pairings window when we're done. So now I'm on the tournament pairings now, and if you'd like, you can go ahead and type in all the teams in the bracket as it comes out, or what most people use is the download from the web. And this is where, before we said we're going to not enter in the regional assignments. Well, that's because when we download from the web, we can load not only the team names and the team seeds, but we can load the records, the tournament locations and dates, and the regional matchups as well. And so this is where we're going to get that information from, right from the template from the Turbo Tourney website, and we're not going to worry about assigning that. We do have the option though here of saying how we want the bracket to be set up in our pool. So based on the template has it set up like this, but if I want to use something differently, I can change that and move the regions around. But it's probably a good idea just to go ahead and leave that the way they are and have them match up with the template from Turbo Tourney. So I'll go ahead and start loading the pairings, and as you can see, we now have all the teams loaded up from the 2003 tournament. And I can just say OK, and now I've got my bracket and I'm ready to start loading player picks. So that's just a short step on first how to get your pool options set up to run based on how you score it and how you set your tiebreakers and what information for the players you want to keep track of.